My client went from sub £50,000 a month to £83,000 a month in 30 days. That's £1 million a year simply by changing how they communicated with their team. In this video, I'm going to show you exact 3-part framework that transformed their leadership communication and how the way you're currently giving feedback might be secretly sabotaging your growth. I'm Widening, and I help high-performing entrepreneurs stop self-sabotaging and getting in their own way so that they can focus, grow, and scale their business. Today, I'll break down this exact communication framework into 3 parts. 1, the hidden cost of poor leadership communication. 2, the 4 deadly mistakes costing you thousands. And next, the 7-figure framework that builds trust, performance, and accountability. By the way, don't click off the video halfway through or just skip through to the end. That would literally be self-sabotaging the exact pattern I'm going to be helping you break. So the most valuable insights are going to come in the 3rd section, so make sure to tune in. And if you're new here, consider giving that a subscribe button a click now so you don't miss future frameworks that could transform your business. So if you don't know who I am, I'm a former growth partner at a 7-figure company, hosted the Top 2% podcast, and I've coached over 250 entrepreneurs to break through self-sabotaging patterns that kept them stuck. Now, the first thing that most entrepreneurs don't realize is that poor leadership communication is actually a form of self-sabotage. When you can't effectively communicate with your team, you can't see your blind spots, you don't have someone from the outside looking in, you're literally sabotaging your own growth potential. So to overcome this form of self-sabotage, you first need to understand what's happening in your brain when a team member disappoints you. Because once you see the machinery at work, you're never going to fail for these patterns again. Now, according to a 2022 HubSpot workplace survey, 30% of employees listed unsupportive management as the most significant cultural barrier to high performance. And research from the Society for Human Resource Management estimates that poor communication costs businesses with 100 employees an average of $420K per year in lost productivity. And you might not even have a team that big. You might have it a little bit smaller. So considering that cost with all the systems, all the processes, all the hiring people, all the managerial management at that level, it's $4,200 per year in lost productivity. If you've got a team of 3, that's costing you about $12K per year. And that's if you're not systemized. That's if you're still running stuff without structure. So the real cost goes deeper than just dollars. Have a think about how much could I actually be missing out on? It's the difference really though between building a high performance team and constantly fighting fires. So let me break this down with a quick drawing. Here we have your brain. Here in the front, we have the prefrontal cortex, and here we have the amygdala. Now, the part of the amygdala is like your emotional alarm system. And this section here, prefrontal cortex, is for executive function, making rational decisions, moving the progress forward. But according to research from Dr. Robert Sapolsky from Stanford, when a team member misses a deadline or makes a mistake, your amygdala instantly activates, which floods your brain with cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Whereas this literally impairs the activity of your prefrontal cortex, where decision-making happening. So imagine this, your graphic designer is late, or you have a media buyer who isn't performing on time, or you have an appointment setter who's not actually doing the messages. Your brain suddenly will start snapping thoughts, cognitive distortions that will say, oh, you're always late. This is completely unacceptable. You might even take it as a personal attack. It might feel like a personal attack. But here's what makes this even worse is if you're looking to build a high performance team and have somebody be as efficient as possible and make the best bang for your buck and also help your team members perform, the studies from Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence show that leaders' emotions significantly impact the performance of the team through what they call something called emotional contagion. And what's even worse is in the Journal of Neuroscience, it shows that when your brain is triggered and you move into an amygdala fear, fight, flight, fawn response, it can take up to 20 to 30 minutes to actually return back into baseline. That's 20 to 30 minutes not operating at your potential, making decisions that aren't the best for you and for your team and for your company, and unable to lead at your most high-performing self. But here's the thing that most business coaches, gurus out there on the internet completely miss on self-sabotage. It's not just about one bad moment. Each time you communicate from a triggered state, you're widening what I call the leadership trust gap. And this gap is a true blocker to building a high performance team. So let me draw what this looks like. Imagine this. So you've got yourself as the leader on one side of the bridge, and then you've got your team on the other side of the bridge. And let's say this bridge here is connected by planks. And then this bridge itself is trust and belief. Each time you poorly communicate with your team, that is a plank gone. It's a plank gone. Whether that communication poorly is an attack on character, whether it's waiting too long to actually go ahead and address an issue that is not how you would like it to go, or isn't in alignment with the company, or isn't in alignment with your mission. If you're removing several critical parts of this and you're creating gaps, it's going to make it a lot harder for there to be this trust and belief, not only within yourself, within them as a team member, but within you co-creating as a team as well. And eventually there's such a wide gap in information, collaboration, performance that there's no crossover anymore. So your team stop coming to you with problems. They hide mistakes, they disengage. And this is exactly what happened to a client when we ran a leadership training the other day. And they were talking about a team meeting and then some of the team members arriving late and it being disruptive for the meeting. And she mentioned that she was so livid that she actually had to leave the room to go and calm herself down. Like she couldn't handle being there. The meeting structure was lost. And that's because this bridge has been destroyed. Because when you're that emotionally triggered and you're operating from the amygdala, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes really difficult to lead from your future self, from your best self, from the high performance leader that your team needs you to be. When you're unable to deal with your different emotions, different thoughts, different triggers, and you allow that to consume you, you're now self-sabotaging. You're preventing yourself from building the high performance team that you desire, as well as reaching your potential and impacting the amount of people that you want to impact. And take a moment and just have a think, like, when was the last time that you felt triggered at a team member or at somebody, that a freelancer that you used, or whoever that was, and how did that impact performance? Like, what happened for you? What happened with your ability to communicate effectively with them over time? How did it impact your team's performance? Like, actually just have a look. So in this next section, I'm going to reveal the 4 deadly feedback mistakes that are widening your leadership trust gap and sabotaging your ability to build a high performance team. So stay with me, because identifying your specific pattern is the first step to transforming your communication. And if you already had some reflections, drop them down below as well. Now that you understand the brain science, let's look at how these neural patterns show up specifically in your business communication. So I've worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs, and these 4 feedback mistakes consistently cost them the most money and time by preventing high performance team development. I want you to have a think about which of these 4 is currently sabotaging your growth the most. Pay attention, because this awareness alone could literally double your leadership effectiveness and eliminate a major source of self-sabotage, and is going to help you be more efficient and therefore increase cash flow of your team, from revenue driving and back-end systems and lack of stress that you are being caused and whatnot, and so on and so forth. So the first deadly mistake is attacking identity instead of behavior. This sounds like you're so disorganized, instead of, hey, the files weren't organized correctly in the CRM system. One of my clients had a quarterly planning meeting where team members arrived 30 minutes late. Their reaction: you weren't here on time. We're now not going to change the structure of this meeting to go into things that you want to talk about. And they later tried to physically leave the room because they were so triggered. And the problem here is that this feedback attacked who the team members were, not what they did, creating shame rather than accountability. And high performance teams can only function in an environment of accountability without shame. Well, let me show you what's actually happening psychologically. So we've got these 2 columns, right? We've got identity, and then we've got behavior. Let's say you tell a team member, oh, you're so disorganized. This is now an attack on identity, and it triggers shame. Let's say you say you're so unreliable. That's going to create defensiveness. Let's say you call somebody you're not a team player. That is going to lead to disengagement. Comparatively, when you have a behavior focus and you say, hey, the files were disorganized, this creates accountability around the actual behavior itself. Let's say you say the deadline was missed. This focuses on correction. Or you say, hey, the team wasn't consulted. The team wasn't consulted. Now, this is going to lead to improvement. So let's say we have an identity attack. This is shame. According to David Hawkins in his book, Letting Go, but also Power and Force, when you indict shame, it is literally the most miserable, despising, eliminating, humiliating process. So you're literally putting people's emotional state into the worst possible place it can be. As a reach out of a way, it's an attack from character because you're triggered and you want to feel better about yourself subconsciously, but you do that by putting down your team. And you think that that's going to drive forward success? Because at the end of the day, like, the brain is designed to protect your identity at all costs. So when you address behavior, you create guilt. Guilt is about an action, not a person. Dr. Brené Brown at the University of Houston shows that shame makes people feel bad about who they are. Guilt leads to correction, improvement, and growth because the action can be changed without threatening identity. And a study showed in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that behavior-focused feedback improves performance by approximately 20%, while identity-focused feedback can actually decrease performance. So think about your recent feedback. How might you be attacking identity rather than addressing behavior? What specific words or phrases could change to eliminate this form of self-sabotage? Now, the second deadly mistake here is reactive instead of proactive communication. So this sounds like waiting until you're actually frustrated and then need to say something rather than saying something in the first instance and just being calm, being at peace, whatever. So I had a client share with me that they had a graphic designer and another agency that they were working with. And he was like, hey, I have a designer who takes forever. I've given him a chance. I've given him a chance. I've given him a chance. But I don't feel like he cares that much. The problem is here, he's waited until frustration built up over days or even weeks before addressing it. By then, the emotional charge makes it nearly impossible to actually communicate effectively and find out what's going on. Because like I said, I feel like he doesn't really care that much. That might be true. It might be also, he is a team member without the same skill set as you, and then they need better training. They need better communication. They need nurturing. They need leading. Leaders create leaders. If you have somebody you are working for, they need leadership from you. But here's where something wild happens. So what effectiveness of feedback looks like over time based on research from the Center for Creative Leadership is immediate feedback is in same day feedback is 80 to 100% effective. Next day feedback is 50 to 70% effective. Week later feedback is 25 to 40% effective. And month later feedback is less than 10% effective. So why such a dramatic drop off? Because delayed feedback creates a disconnect between action and consequence, which makes behavior change much harder to implement. So according to the research published in the International Journal of Training and Development, feedback given within 24 hours is significantly more effective than feedback given a week later. Yet most business owners wait until they're at breaking point before saying anything. This is self-sabotage, and it's just ineffective. It's a form of leadership self-sabotage. You're literally making your own job harder by waiting. Like, you hired a person so that you could be more effective and do the things that you wanted to do and get moving and get growing and work at speed. Yet you're afraid to give other people feedback because you might fear rejection or fear failure or fear saying something wrong, or you want to be the quiet person, you're people pleasing, you're introverted, whatever excuse it is. So actually have a think, like, what feedback are you currently delaying that should be addressed now? And how might addressing it immediately change the outcome? All right, mistake number 3 is imbalanced feedback ratio. The third, apologies for my typing, my drawing, positive to negative feedback ratio. High performance team research is very fascinating. I've read a lot within the sales training, the sales acceleration formula, but also within Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's research at the University of North Carolina. High performing teams maintain a ratio of approximately 5-to-1 positive to negative, this is some scales, feedback. Yet most entrepreneurs do the complete opposite, focusing exclusively on what's going wrong. One client told me I tend to be very like, you are doing this, which focuses solely on problems rather than celebrating wins. And this creates an environment where team members only hear from you when something's wrong. So let me show you the impact this has on team performance. So think about it like this. So as a team member joins you, if you have positive feedback 5-to-1, performance over time is going to increase. Whereas if you have 1-to-1, as in one positive feedback and one negative, it's very much going to flatline, which might be what you need. You might get there with somebody who's a bit more basic, but if you're looking to run high performance, this is not going to work. So if you are on a 1-to-5 where all you do is give negative feedback, their performance is going to drop off on time. Why do they keep making the same mistakes? They should know this already. You are the problem. When your team member only hears from you when something's wrong, they learn to avoid you rather than engage with you. They hide mistakes instead of solve them. They create even bigger problems down the line. And this is what I call the feedback paradox. The more you focus only on problems, the more problems you'll have to address. It's very much woo-woo. What you focus on expands. I'm sure you know this, but why are we not implementing it? Because we're in self-sabotage, because we're in pride, because we've got to this point, so we should know everything by now, because I've listened to all the podcasts and all the stuff, and like, it's very confronting, I know. But the businesses that scale fastest are those where leaders actively look for opportunities to give positive feedback, not just correct problems. So have a think about what's your current positive to negative feedback ratio? What recent accomplishment from your team could you acknowledge right now? What could you celebrate them for? Even if it's just doing their job. Can you celebrate them for that? Now, the final mistake here is feedback without coaching. This sounds like giving feedback like this isn't acceptable without helping them understand how to improve and how to lead themselves. So one of my clients was frustrated with an AI vendor who had kept missing deadlines, and he messaged him saying, I would have rather you be transparent and tell us your current workload with other projects is too much instead of delaying this for as long as you have. So while this expresses his frustration, it didn't create a path forward. It leaves the vendor feeling criticized, but not being empowered to fix the situation. And research from the ICF, the International Coach Federation, shows that feedback combined with coaching questions improves performance by 70% compared to feedback alone. So have a think of it like this. There's two sides. Traditional feedback is a one-way street. You've got leader gives information to a team member. Coaching feedback on the flip side is a two-way collaboration where you've got leader, team member, and then you've got this back and forth. So you've got one side traditional where it's like leader instructs team member, no feedback, go and follow what I do, go and take orders. Leader, and then we've got collaborative team here, everybody rowing the boat at the same speed. So when you add coaching questions to your feedback, you create accountability without sacrificing autonomy, which is the perfect balance for high performance. And high performance teams aren't built through criticism. They're built through coaching conversations that develop people's capabilities. So have a think, like, how could you transform your criticism into coaching in your next difficult conversation? Why do you think I ask these questions? I want you guys to win. Before I share the 7-figure framework that solves all 4 of these mistakes, I've actually created a free leadership document for you. It contains the exact frameworks I used to turn around a business that crashed from $300K a month to $25K a month in monthly revenue and back up to $83K a month, the 7-figure mark, and progressed onwards from there. So if you want to access that, all you've got to do is message me on Instagram and say, Luke, can I get the 7-figure leadership framework? That's all you've got to do, and I'll send it over to you. So now that you understand these 4 deadly mistakes, I want to show you the exact framework that will transform your leadership communication and help you build a high-performance team without self-sabotage. The 7-figure framework, let's actually run into it. So this framework has completely transformed just this week one client who leads a 14-person team who has turned chaotic team meetings into structured growth sessions that aren't wasting her time taking up her entire calendar, and so that she can focus on big visionary stuff as well. So I call this the SBIC framework, and it consists of 4 powerful components that you can implement immediately after this video. And what makes this framework so effective is that it addresses both the logical and emotional aspects of communication. It's not just about what you say, but it's about how you say it. So the first component here, S. S is for situation. This is where you clearly identify the specific circumstance that you're giving feedback. So instead of giving vague statements like, oh, you're always late, you say, hey, when you arrived 30 minutes late to our quarterly planning meeting yesterday. It's a very specific scenario. The key is to be specific about when and where without exaggerating always or never statements. These are just objective facts. Here's the practical implementation. So state exactly what happened, include the specific time and context, stick to observable facts, not interpretations, and keep it brief and clear. So unclear communication might look like your work isn't good enough, you're always missing deadlines, you need to be more professional. Clear communication might look like the client report due yesterday was submitted 3 hours late, or during yesterday's team meeting, you interrupted Sarah 3 times, or the presentation was missing the financial data we discussed on Monday. It's based on facts. The clearer the situation you describe, the less defensive the other person becomes because you're discussing a specific instance, not a character flaw. High performance teams operate on clarity and specificity, not generalizations and vague complaints. Now, component 2 is behavior. And this is where you describe what you observed without judgment or interpretation. So instead of you saying, you don't care about punctuality, you say, I observed that you came in after we had already started making the marketing presentation. So the power of the behavior opponent is that it separates the person from their actions. And this allows them to change the behavior without feeling personally attacked, which is what we said earlier, the shame and the guilt piece. Behavior focus might look like, I noticed you missed the deadline we agreed on. I observed you checking your phone during the client presentation. I saw that the report was missing the financial section we discussed. Identity focused is you're unreliable, you're unprofessional, you're careless. So these behavior statements can be accepted or rejected based on facts, not feelings. And this distinction is crucial because for high performance teams, when people know that they can make mistakes without becoming a mistake in your eyes, they take more risks, they innovate more, and ultimately perform better, which is going to directly impact you because you've now built a leader. Now, the third component here is impact. And this is where you explain how the behavior affected you, the team, or the business. So instead of this is unacceptable, you say, hey, when the meeting started late, team members were confused, I felt frustrated, and we had to pay for extra for the meeting room. So just lay it as it is. So the impact component creates understanding of why the behavior matters. It transforms feedback from personal criticism to shared business context. And this is where you can use I statements to express your feelings without blame. So I felt disappointed when, I was concerned because, this impacted me because, or this impacted the company because. So have a think about this. Every behavior has multiple layers of impact in a high performance team. You have personal impact, so how it affected you, the inner circle. You have team impact, how it affected other team members. And then you have business impact, how it affected objectives, clients, finances, or future impact, how it might affect trust and performance moving forward. The more clearly you can articulate these impacts, the more likely the person is to understand why the behavior matters. And in my experience with 7-figure businesses, leaders who clearly articulate impact rather than just expressing frustration see massive improvement with behavior change from their teams. Now, the final component of the 7-figure framework is coaching. And I think this is what is missed off the most in the industry. And it's what I added as a component to this original framework. And this is where you get to collaborate on solutions rather than just pointing out problems. So instead of don't let this happen again, you ask, how can we prevent this from happening in the future? What support do you need? And it helps you go from criticism to an actual growth opportunity. And it demonstrates that you're interested in improvement, not just punishment. So this might include things like, what do you think caused this to happen? What could we do differently next time? What support would help you succeed with this? On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can implement this change? So in traditional feedback, the conversation often ends in criticism. In a coaching approach, you create a loop of understanding, solution generation, and follow-up. So this might look like, you can write this framework down now. 1, ask what caused the issue, understanding. So actually first come to the actual individual. 2, collaborate on potential solutions. 3 is agree on specific action. So actually get a commitment. And then lastly, set a time to follow up accountability. We always need deadlines on accountability. This approach is going to create joint ownership of solutions rather than a one-sided demand. It's the difference between a boss and a leader. So let's summarize this. So situation, specific situation, I observed objective behavior. 3, it made me feel emotion because of reason and it impacted business outcome. How can we improve? How can we improvement question? So by implementing these 4 components in your feedback, you will transform how your team receives your communication and eliminate a major source of self-sabotage in your leadership. So for positive feedback, you might say, hey, when we sent out the team's salaries yesterday, I noticed you included a personal note of appreciation to everyone. That created a strong sense of team cohesion and showed your leadership maturity. What other ways could we continue building a culture of appreciation? So that's a pretty corporate example, but more so for a startup, you might say, hey, when you got these designs in time, I noticed you gave extra detail to making sure that we were on brand. That creates a strong level of trust for me that you can do the work. And it means that within our marketing or within our client delivery, whichever this is applicable to, that we're going to attract the right people, or our brand is going to resonate with everything that we do. Or it might be our clients are going to be happy, which means that we're going to be able to work with them for longer. How can we keep this up? For negative feedback, and I know this is probably remember 5 to 1. For negative feedback, when we had our quarterly planning meeting situation, I observed that you arrived 30 minutes late without sending a message. Behavior. This created a confusion for the team and meant we had to repeat information, and I felt frustrated because we had to extend the meeting time. Impact. What might help you arrive on time for future meetings or let us know you'll be delayed? Coaching. So it's very, very simple. After implementing the 7-figure framework, you can completely transform your communication. The same as my clients who've expanded their business, delegated 85% of their work within the first few weeks, and then built out systems to create momentum as they go. So with that said, just concluding, what conversation could transform your business if you had it today using this framework? I want you to actually think of a 24-hour implementation challenge. Like, what's one difficult conversation that you've been avoiding that you could have been using this framework, and you can use this framework in the next 24 hours? Think about it. Is it with a team member who's consistently meeting deadlines? Is it with a partner who's not delivering on promises? Is it with yourself about behavior that's holding you back? Do you need to coach yourself better? Whatever it is, I want you to apply that framework right now. Write out your SBIC framework and commit to delivering it within the next 24 hours. And just to cover it, the 4 deadly communication frameworks that sabotage your business growth. 1, attacking identity instead of behavior. 2, being reactive instead of proactive. 3, having an imbalanced feedback ratio. And 4, giving feedback without coaching. After we've learned the 7-figure framework, situation is be specific about when and where. Behavior, describe what you observed objectively. I is explain the effects on you, the team, and the business. And coaching is collaborate on solutions. So, lastly, the difference between entrepreneurs who stay at 10 to 30K a month, 50K a month, even 100K a month or beyond isn't just strategy. It's their ability to have effective conversations that build trust instead of destroying it. It's the difference between self-sabotaging your business growth and moving past it. And each time you transform a negative, reactive, emotional conversation into a structured, effective one using the 7-figure framework, you're not just solving one problem. You're building a culture of trust and performance that compounds over time. And when entrepreneurs try to implement this framework alone, I've observed they often struggle with consistent application, especially in emotionally charged situations, which leads to slower results and continued team frustration, which keeps you stuck in the same self-sabotaging patterns. Now, I would consider for you, how would having personalized guidance help you implement this faster and avoid the common pitfalls? So if you're ready to stop self-sabotaging with poor communication and start building a high-performance team that can help you scale, I would invite you to join my NeuroProductivity Coaching Elite program. I remember when I joined a business that crashed from 300K a month at its height to 25K a month with 50K in operations. The leadership team was dismissive, negative, with very little positive feedback. But within 1 month of implementing this framework, the business was back to neutral. The next month, it was profitable again. That shift from reactive, emotional leadership to structured, effective communication was the difference between failure and success. So if you find value in this framework and you're ready to stop self-sabotaging with poor communication, click the link in this description to book a call with me. And remember, your business growth is waiting on the other side of these conversations. Not someday, not tomorrow, but right now. With that said, we'll see you soon.